Thank you for joining me today. We have a special guest, Logan from Decode Your Reality. Okay, this guy has amazing videos on how to decode yourself, on how to find out who you are, and secrets that are not really secrets, but we forgot. And by understanding this, we can live a better life, make better life decisions. So, without further ado, Logan, take on the stage. We're going to be talking about astrology today, Jacob's ladder, and the tarot cards.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing some time with me today, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm always honored to be able to share space with other people that are like-minded and are seeking, this great Gnosis that that a lot of us. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're supposed to be watching this video, and there are no accidents or mistakes. So everything that does happen in your reality are part of your code. And that's why it's very important for each and every one of us to study ourselves through, the things that the church has demonized, which would be astrology, numerology, human design, personality types, Enneagram, Mayan astrology, Vedic astrology. All of these layers were demonized by the church for the very sole purpose of kind of suppressing this information to where, people are starting to come around and realize that these mystical art platforms are really our instruction manuals. And, the game is designed, from what I've researched so far, Alberto, the game's designed to where it's not just going to hand you the keys to your kingdom and say, here you go, and give you carte blanche and roll the red carpet out. That's not the way this game's designed. The game's designed very intricately, and it's all mathematically precise. And the code that we all individually express through our birthdays, through like what day of the year we're born on, our cards of illumination, the tarot cards, the astrology chart, I like to say the planets are your team members or your team players, and you're the coach of the team. So all these layers are designed to give you your instruction manual on how you function in this reality. And as I mentioned, suppression is part of the game. And it may be that whoever's kind of currently running at the very top of the pyramid currently right now, and that empire is about to crumble and fall, as we all know, their job was to suppress us because they live in fear. I think the entities that are that have major control on the world stage, these organizations, they live in fear. They live in fear-based. That's the way they're designed. So we can't get mad at those people. They're just living out their code, right? But a lot of people like to point the finger and say, these people are bad and these people are good. And, there really is nothing good or bad. It's just, everything just is. Just like, I think Star Wars gave a very good example. There's the Force, and it depends on how you want to use it. You want to use it for, your ego, or do you want to use it to help and enhance the world? And that's really what it comes down to. And of course, the energies that surround all these things are starting to come to light, because we're now either moving into the age of Aquarius. Personally, I'm at the mindset of 2022 will be the official start date of the Aquarian age. So we're at the tail end of the age of Pisces. And so there's a lot of shifting going on. There's a lot of contrast. There's a lot of chaos because we're nearing the end of a cycle. And there's a lot of energy that's still stuck in that old cycle. And a lot of people are starting to break free and realize that they're excited about this new age that is upon us. And, no one really knows what that age really looks like. There's a lot of big guesses, but we really don't know what that age looks like,
Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
interrupt me anytime, my friend.
Since you're mentioning that right now, the age of Aquarius, I just wanted to say something that is really interesting, that Aquarius is the sign of man. And so every air sign in the zodiac, I realized that is a human instead of being an animal, well, except for Virgo, which is also ruled by Mercury. But anyway, the air signs have to do with the intellect, and so becoming aware and conscious. And so the age of Aquarius, at least that through my transition, I have felt a big shift in my way of thinking, in the way that I approach life. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know that there's going to be a lot of more people waking up and people coming together, and like-minded people, and maybe even building communities that are like-minded.
Yeah, well, there's no more secrets anymore. That's why you don't need to join, and it's okay if you want to join a secret society, but there's no reason to really join that anymore, because the internet has allowed us to tap into virtually any kind of secret you want to look into.
Yeah.
And that wasn't available 20 years ago. I mean, I was born in 1973, and if you're driving in a car in 1973 with a bunch of people, and you're trying to figure out who sang a song that came on the radio, you don't have a cell phone in 1973 to call the radio station to ask them, hey, who sang that song? And if no one in the car knows who sang that song that came on the radio, you have to wait to get home and pick up the phone and use the rotary phone to call somebody that you think would know the answer to who sang that song, or call the radio station. Nowadays, you can literally find anything in an instant, within seconds of logging onto the internet. And it's going to become faster as we move into this 5G technology. A lot of people are against that, and because of fear of how it's going to act and react upon our bodies and our biological equipment that we all are designed as. And I don't really know. I really strive to be in the middle position, in neutrality, because that's where all the power is, by the way. If you were to take a battery and you have the negative and the positive, in the very dead center is the cells, and the cells are where the energy ends up moving back and forth. And in the very dead center, to me, is where the strongest point is. And that's why our bodies, they run on what's called homeostasis. And that means balance. And when you're balanced, everything in moderation. When you're balanced, you can look to the right and look to the left, and you can see things for what they are, and you have more power standing in the middle. And I think that's the very reason why it's the middle path, which, if you study Saturn's magic square, the middle path is the numbers 2, 5, and 8. Even though Saturn's magic square is not the same as the dial pad or calculator, it is the dial pad and calculator. It's the numbers 0 through 9. And that's Saturn's magic square. And the middle pillar in your dial pad that we use all the time to dial people's phone numbers, and we use to calculate numbers on a calculator. The 258 is the middle pillar, and the 147 and the 369 are on either side. And I feel that those are the two pillars. And in between is where the 147 and 369 kind of blend together, and they mesh together to create that 258. And we know 2 is duality. That means duality. We know 5 is the starting point of man. 5 is the busiest number. Any of you listening out there, if you're a 5 life path, if you're a 5 birthday, if you're born on the 23rd, you give all your energy to the 5. If you're born on the 14th, you give all your energy to the number 5. If you're born on the 5th, you're just a straight up 5. All you 5s are extremely busybody kind of people. You can't sit still. Your mind can't sit still. And that's because 5 is the busiest number on that entire 0 through 9 chart. What was your question, Alberto? You had a question?
No, since you're mentioning that, I wanted to point this out because it's interesting. Michael Jordan always, when he used to play, he used number 23. LeBron James, all these big stars, they always save that number because of that combination.
Yep. The 23 is a really special number. When I started studying numerology, I was reading books, and one of them was this guy named Chiro, Chiero. He had a book called Chiro's Book of Numbers, and I learned a lot from that guy. And I learned in that book that the 23 is called the Royal Star of the Lion, and of course that's linked to Leo and the star Regulus and other ones, okay? But the 23 is widely known in sports. David Beckham wears the 23 in soccer, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. See, these guys didn't pick that number. The number picked that person. And it may be consciously through the managers and whoever's from the top bottom, you know, that is actually involved in all these and managing the sports. But the 23 is the epitome of the two. It's the 2 and the 3, which is a representation of Venus and Mars, which is a absolute replication of male-female. So it becomes androgynous, and it gives all its energy to the number 5. Now, if you take the words Royal Star of the Lion and you input that into the Chaldean numerology, it's going to give you an output of the number 69, which is the yin-yang itself, which is a representation of the Mars-Venus presentation or expression. And that's why it's so fortunate. So the 5 is a very busy number because it's the epitome of the androgynous aspect of Mars and Venus together, the male-female, which is the typical, you know, blue and pink, if you will, right? Yeah. So that 5 is a very busy number. So all of you 5s, 5 life paths, you people can't sit still. I mean, it has the most energy going to it, because if I take a pyramid and I drop that right over the top of your dial pad, the pinnacle of the pyramid is going to be right above the number 5. So 5 is the busiest number, and 5 is linked to the element boron, and boron, the atomic weight of boron is, the average is 10.81, and we know that the word man in numerology equals the number 10. So when you synchronize all of these layers, you realize that this reality that we're all playing out is specifically coded. And you know, we take the keyboard. You know, if you're a coder out there and you're taking the keyboard and you're writing code to create some kind of software, like right now, Alberto, we're using Zoom. Someone had to create the software in order for you and I to broadcast this transmission. And it's very intricate. One little thing that goes wrong, and then you got what they call bugs, and then they have to do updates to the Zoom software. And they're constantly doing those, as you know. I mean, if you're on a PC, you're using Windows 10 probably, but you probably know what Windows XP was and Windows 7. Those are outdated pieces of software. And so someone has to write the code to update the software to make it faster, more reliable, less bugs, less Trojan horses, less susceptible to having intrusions, cyber security. So that is we create the micro through the keypad. Well, something created our reality using some kind of numbers and letters and symbols. That's why the occult is notorious for using numbers, letters, and symbols, because it's the code of this reality when you observe it through these letters, symbols, and numbers. And we speak, of course, and our voices create air. And air is the spoken word. Like, I can't speak unless I blow air out of my mouth. So we talked about Aquarius and the air signs in astrology. You have the 4 fixed signs of astrology, but the air signs, Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. Those are the air signs. Those mean the mind. People that are those signs are going to be primarily a lot in their heads. It doesn't mean that a Virgo can't be in their head, but I'm saying is the air signs are notorious for being the deep thinkers. Like, I'm an Aquarius, right? Are you Aquarius too, right?
No, I'm a Gemini, but I have an Aquarius.
Gemini, okay. So you're a Gemini, right? So, you know, we're notorious for being in our heads a lot and being the great thinkers, right? That's how we're coded. But then you have other signs, and maybe you're a fire sign, or maybe you're an earth sign. You're coded a different way. That's why I can do a reading for somebody. And my average reading is about 4 hours long. I'm not just like an hour reading and that's it. It's like 4 hours, because I syncretize a lot of layers above and beyond just astrology. The tarot cards and the cards of illumination, human design. All these layers are pieces of our cosmic blueprint that when you're willing to take on those energies and you read about them, it's the very best scenario that I can give you is, most people know the movie The Matrix. And in that movie, Keanu Reeves needed to learn how to fight. He specifically said, hey, upload to become a Kung Fu master. So they plugged him in, and then the guy took the bulldozer or whatever, set up the code, and he uploaded the code into Keanu Reeves's consciousness, of a Kung Fu master. And within seconds, he was a Kung Fu master. That's exactly how our reality works. Except we don't have the luxury of plugging in like that.
Yeah.
But we're plugging into the internet. We don't have anything physically that we're getting plugged into. But our eyes, these are the receivers of the information. And then this, when we watch videos. And so we're moving into that machine and becoming that machine. And I think that's the very reason why the transhumanism movement is becoming bigger and bigger. And people are constantly, they're afraid of it. And I totally understand that. Because you would have to give up your physical body to move into machine. And there's a lot of fear in that. But is that the direction that we're going? See, like I said, I'm neutral. If that's the way we're going, that's the way we're going. There's no way to say that we're not. There's no way to say that we're not going to, or we are going to, right? But the age of Aquarius means I know thyself, which is why most people think we're moving back into the golden age. Think about it. If we end up becoming tapped into everything, that means there's nothing we don't know anymore. That means that, all this healing technology and levitation and moving things with sound, and the technology's always been there. It's just been suppressed because we were, quite literally, we didn't have the internet at our fingertips. There's nothing you can't learn right now with YouTube, pretty much, or some of these other platforms, right? You can tap into anything and learn your code, just like Keanu got plugged in and became a Kung Fu master. But a lot of people just still think that the mystical arts is about demons and demonology, and it has a satanic realm to it. And until we release that programming, you're going to be left behind. How I feel it is, because again, whatever created this code, this reality, is literally playing out all of us. I really feel that we're inside some kind of simulation. And right now, if you're a fan of a video game, there's one in particular called Madden NFL, right? And some of you, or one of the other popular ones is Minecraft, the most popular video game of all time, which has SimCity simulation games. And those games are about building something. It's about building cities, creating cities and people and organizations, especially the game SimCity. It's designed to where you build empires and you build cities and you put people in there, but then there's real things that happen inside that simulation, like there are tornadoes and natural disasters that end up destroying these. Just exactly what happens in our reality is what happens inside this video game called SimCity or Minecraft, right? So the games right now that are being created, Alberto, are becoming so lifelike, where you really can't tell, like Madden NFL, you're playing the game and it looks like you're actually on the freaking field. What's next? What's next will be as we integrate into the virtual reality world and it becomes one. That's the next step, if we go that far. If we go that far. I mean, the movie Ready Player One came out, and it showed a very dystopian world. Yeah, there's a lot of dystopian stuff coming. We may not even be close to finishing the Dark Age. We may just now be moving into it. That's very possible. A lot of people think we're moving into the Golden Age. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if we're moving into the Dark Age. Maybe we still have plenty of years left in the Dark Age. I can completely see mankind going into the age of Aquarius and moving into machine. And then the age of, if you follow the rules of astrology, the age of Aquarius is the digital age, the information age. And it's possible that what the theology teaches is there will be no more suffering. They will end suffering. There'll be no more tears, nor mourning, nor outcry, nor pain. How would you be able to get rid of that? Well, you'd get rid of this suffering body right here called human being. This is what makes us suffer. Pain. I mean, I'm 48. I just turned 48. And I'm not the spring chicken I used to be 20 years ago. I got aches and pains. I'm starting to feel what it's like to be someone who's almost hitting 50 years old, right? It's much different in this body right now. And I don't particularly, I'm not a fan of suffering. I'm just not. You know, a lot of people end their lives because they're in constant pain and suffering. I can see why they would choose that route. So if you had the option to make a decision to exchange your consciousness into a digital format, would you do that to end the suffering? I know a lot of people would. So a lot of people that are not suffering right now, that are enjoying life, of course they're gonna be like, no, I wouldn't do that. I completely understand why you would choose that. But people that are suffering, they may want to choose moving their consciousness into a machine. And that would end all the suffering, and you'd become immortal in a certain way. And at the same time, you could move into what would be called hedonism, which is like all the pleasures being capitalized on, because you could have anything you want at that point, moving into that. So it's possible that the age of Aquarius may mean that we will transition into machine, and then we will evolve into that, and then we will stay there for 2,000 plus years, however long the cycle is. Some say it's like 2,160 years. And then when the age of Capricorn comes into play, which is an earth sign, we will then move out of machine and back into man, because it's going to an earth sign again, because Aquarius is an air sign. You know, remember the very reason, like the Bible, let me get my cards, hold on. The Bible has the cross on it. And the cross, you can see this card right there, that's called the trefoil, that's the club suit right there. That's the cross. And if you go research the older Bibles, this is what they have on the front of it. This is the cross. The club suit, this suit right here, means air. So when you synchronize that, what does it say in the beginning? God was what? The Word. And how do you speak air? Through air. So it's the mind first, and then it speaks through magic and said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Everything has to be thought of first, and then comes through the spoken word. So this is the very reason why this is on the Bible, and how that synchronizes with that.
Well, the Bible is an astrological book.
Totally an astrological book. It's all astrology. All of it. Ezekiel 1 verses 10 is ox, lion, eagle, man. That's the 4 fixed signs in astrology. It's completely astrology. I mean, since we mentioned that, how many constellations are there in the classical sense? 88. How many keys on a piano? 88. That's not a coincidence. Someone didn't sit down with the piano, and I decoded the piano. I decoded that. The guy who created the piano, I can't remember his name, but do you think he actually was sitting down and said, well, there's 88 constellations, so I'm going to make 88 keys on the piano? Of course not, because those 88 keys on the piano are in complete harmony with one another as you move up the scale or down the scale. Any more than that is going to, you know, I mean, it can extend it, of course, and get into a different frequency. But that piano is perfectly laid out. And that piano, that number 88, is completely tied into the gestation period of how a mother gives birth to a child. 9 weeks is linked through alchemy. When you bring in alchemy and the number 88, it's totally linked into the 9 months of pregnancy. So all this is mathematically precise. This code that was written by the architect. And I don't know what you want to, you know, all of you may have an opinion out there as to what the architect may be. And you know, on my videos, I suggest what that could be. And I'm constantly changing because I do a lot of research as a scientist, and you're constantly being bombarded by stimulation through the code. And the code, it seems like the code, we know that word shapeshift. The code seems like it likes to be a shapeshifter. It wants to be found, but it's so elusive. You know, it's so elusive because you have all these, there's over 9,000 religions. What happened to the first one? Why was the first one so bad? No, someone just, I mean, you know, you say tomato, I say tomato. You know, you may like this, I may like that. Everybody's right. It's just a matter of someone started out with the first religion, which we don't even know which one it was, right? No one can prove which one came first. And then someone didn't like that one, so that someone said, well, I'm going to create my own. That's like the wardrobe of the divine, if you will. Like, you know, if I go in your closet, Alberto, I bet you don't just own one pair of socks or one pair of underwear or one shirt or one pair of blue jeans. You probably have multiple, right? Well, what do you think the cosmos is all about? You think it just has one religion and one set of numbers and one set of languages? No. I mean, why are there people in China that have different slanted eyes than us? How do you explain all these different ethnic backgrounds on the world stage today? It doesn't make any sense thinking that we came from one man and one woman called Adam and Eve. That doesn't make any sense at all. None. When you study the blood, why are there 8 different blood types? You know, do you know your blood type? You know, I mean, those are important clues to how our reality works, right?
Cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's totally right. So, I mean, I decoded blood types, and when I decoded that, it seems like that is linked to the country of Japan, the land of the rising sun, Japan. You know, and Japan has a flag, and the flag in Japan is white with a red dot in the middle, which signifies blood types.
Right.
Yeah. So when you can see the code, you have a lot of keys to your kingdom. But then it gets really, you know, the offshoot to that, the con, if you will, is it gets to be really lonely, because you get to a place where you have all this knowledge and you have no one to really share it with that will resonate with that information. So it gets kind of lonely, right? So you got to deal with that. You got to deal with isolation. I spend a lot of time alone. My family is virtual, pretty much, you know, my subscribers, the people that resonate with my research, and I don't force it upon anybody. You know, like I try to collaborate. As you know, like Santos Bonacci is become a really close friend of mine. He's a great guy. Him and I, our cards are the club suits. I mean, we have a lot of, I know that we're like soul brothers for sure. And he's doing his work, I'm doing my work, but we somehow meet in the middle, and his information, I got pretty much a lot of it, I got started because of that guy. You know, I've been following him for a very long time. And I said, man, I would love to meet that guy. And then, you know, just 2 years ago, he came to LA, and I was so fortunate to hang out with him for a week, you know. But these are the people that I like to learn from, and they're syncretists. We're all syncretists, right? We're synchronizing all this information, and that's what I do. I take, you know, the cards and I synchronize them with astrology and numerology and human design and the medicine deck and the tarot cards. They're all separate, but they're all syncretized together. And there's that's how the code is.
Like different systems, but they all bring you to the same source, how everything works in a different way. Numerology, like you said, I also think that this is a virtual reality. It's just so well done that you think this is it, but this is just an experience. It's not really the source where we came from, you know. Yep. It's really hard to say, no, this is what it is. This is how it happened, but everybody has a different way of seeing the same thing, like different filters. Yep. You know.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's all the stories when you really can see them for what they are. You know, like if you take the fallen angels story, you have the biblical explanation of that. Then you have the Book of Enoch, which isn't even included in the canons, right? It's a separate library of books, and it kind of says the same thing, that there are watchers. And I personally believe the watchers are our handlers. You know, if you have a dog and you go walk your dog, you may have a collar or a harness on the dog, and you have a leash on the dog, and you're that dog's handler. And we know that the word dog is God spelled backwards. And there's a reason why dog is man's best friend, right? That's not an accident. But what's handling us? People do not like to be in prison. People do not like to be a slave. That's why there's all this revolting up right now. People just can't accept the fact that it's very possible that we have absolutely no control and we're being controlled remotely through this computer code called the game of life. And I've shown clear and convincing evidence. I've had deep conversations with Santos about this, and even he agrees. It's such a contradiction, but at the same time, it's so mathematically precise that there's no way that man could ever code anything like this. And it appears that we are these co-creators, and that's very possible. It's possible that we have free will and we're able to co-create. But in my experiences, through my research, I personally feel that if we do have any free will, it's very minimal. Like being able to choose what you want to eat, or if you want to go to the gym, or how much water you drink every day, how much sleep you want to get. I think those are the pieces of free will that we have. But when it comes to living out your code and your purpose, you're going to be forced to do that. I mean, it's no different than inside your body right now. There are a whole bunch of white blood cells, and the white blood cells are designed to work with your immune system. And anytime some kind of foreign invader comes in your body, like a bacteria, the white blood cell's job, it's programmed to go after the invader. It can't deviate away from its code. It's not possible. You cannot change the code of a white blood cell, unless, of course, maybe you get some kind of autoimmune disease or something like that, which may change the code. That could be possible, because there are autoimmune diseases where the body attacks itself. That would be like a Trojan horse inside of a computer where it starts to eat itself, right? But nonetheless, the body, when you come out of the womb, if you have no genetic imperfections, your body's designed to run without you even doing anything. You don't have to do anything. What controls your breathing when you go to sleep? What controls your heartbeat during the daytime? Do you think I'm not thinking about my heart and thinking about it all the time. You'd never get anything done. So what controls all these things? It's the freaking code that was written in this game called life. And so when you look at the astrology and numerology and all these layers through the mystical arts, and you realize, like, man, how can somebody describe me that doesn't even know me? Because it's in the freaking code. When you can see the code from all these great authors that come out with the card, like, my friend Sharon, who lives right next door to me, she's been reading the cards for a very long time. And she's got a website, and like I can give you any card, any of your cards. Anybody listening, you can read just your single birthday card, and I guarantee you it will be about 95% accurate. That's how close of accuracy it will come. And this woman who wrote this code, she doesn't know you. How is it possible that someone that doesn't know you can write about your birthday and tell you exactly, with almost absolute precision, how you function in this reality? Because she's tapped into the code. The code she's been willing to because her job was to show you what the cards mean, right? We all have our own jobs. But unfortunately, some people in this reality, it seems, and again, life's a big contradiction. So people will be like, well, Logan, I thought that, the code is the code and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, that's what I believe, right? So they're like, well, okay, well then all this suffering, I'm supposed to experience all this suffering? Well, yeah, it's part of your code. And it may be based on, if there is such a thing as karma, it may be based upon a past life, and you're having to pay for the code right now, right? You're having to pay for it from what you did in a past life. So if you believe in karma and you believe in reincarnation and all that kind of stuff, then be a freaking good person during this life. Help as many people as you can. That's what you should do anyway. Anybody listening, you should be trying to help the world and help save the world and help shift the world through what you feel is best. And, not going and asking people, hey, what do you think I should do here? How do you think I should? They don't live through your life. So asking somebody what they think you should do is absolutely one of the worst things you can do, because they don't live through your shoes. They don't have, your planetary positions in your natal chart. They don't have your birthday. Even if they did have your birthday, they're born at a different time, which changes the whole parameters. They're born in a different city with a different ley line, and the latitude, longitude of where you were born has a lot to do with who you are and why you're here. They weren't born in the same hospital as you, which has a different numerology output as well. They weren't born with the same parents, the same brothers and sisters and all that. All the influences, they make up who we are today. It's part of our code. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I was watching one of your videos where you decode the Simpsons, the show.
Which one? I have like 3. Was it the one on Trump, or just was it the Pope, that the Pope's dead, or was it Bart Simpson?
You actually. I think the video is called "How to Decode Yourself," and you show different ways and different systems.
I showed Matt Groening, yeah.
And the Simpsons have 5 planets on the 5th house.
Yep.
And it was done precisely, or what's the right word? On purpose, when those planets were there, so that the energy will project out the way that the Simpsons play out. You know, so it's a code. It's a code.
It's totally a mathematical code. I mean, I don't remember what the Simpsons looks like, but if you're saying that there's 5 planets in the 5th house, I mean, that's a shit ton of energy inside your house. I mean, the 5th house in astrology, house number 5, is where everything gets manifest in your personal life. It's, of course, ruled by Leo, and it's exalted. The sun's exalted there, of course, because the sun during summertime loves to be in the sign of Leo, right? And what does the sun do in the 5th house? It expands. In nature, there is just expansion and contraction. That's it. So in the winter time in Aquarius, typically in the northern hemisphere, it's winter time. It's contraction. Everybody gets cold. Everything shrinks. That's what happens when you put ice on something. When you ice something, if you get a sprained ankle and you put ice on it, it reduces the swelling. That's contraction. That's winter time. And then the opposite house is Leo, house number 5. Aquarius is 11. Leo is 5. Leo in the northern hemisphere is the fullest expression of summertime. What happens when you put heat on something? It expands it. You put a heating pad on your sore muscles, it increases blood flow, it expands. So that's the entire way nature works. Expansion, contraction. Breathe in, breathe out. That's what the cosmos does. It takes breaths in and then it takes breaths out. The earth, the ocean tides, low tide, high tide. When the waves come in, the waves go out. That's the earth breathing in and out. It's expansion and contraction. That's all it is.
Yeah, man. It's so observing nature is the way to learn. That's the true scientist.
Absolutely it is. It's 1000% the way to observe nature. I'm from the Boston area, and I had gone back to see my sister this past fall, and at the very tail end of the summer. And I was, and over in that area, the trees get really beautiful. The leaves, they turn colors. And that area is notorious for having all this beauty in the trees and the foliage changing and turning colors. And one day I was walking back from the gym to my sister's house, and I was observing the leaves. And I realized, I'm like, man, the leaves, they're green. And then the majority of them turn red, orange, and yellow, and then they fall off the tree and they die. Well, those are the lower chakras. When you look at the heart chakra is green, leaves, plants, life. And then the leaves change color. They go down into the lower chakra realms, which is a denotion of hell. Now, of course, it's a two-way street, because hell can be cold, but it also can be hot. So nature will tell you its story. I think that's the reason why the chakras are lined up that way, where the lower chakras, the root and the sacral and the solar plexus, those are all on the lower side. And then the higher ones are representing the gamma rays, you know, the violet and the indigo, and the throat would be blue, which it classically is. This is the blue chakra, we talked about the number 5. This is house number 5. In astrology, when you synchronize the chakras with the houses, everybody out there has a house number 5. This is house number 5 right here. This is where that you speak your spells right here. So house number 5 in astrology is where all your manifestations will happen. It's where all your it's where all government and politics and religion and currencies and cars and mechanics and all that, businesses, everything is inside your house number 5. which is Leo, the lion. The lion is the king of the jungle.
That was the
It's
house.
the busiest number, right? When we synchronize that, in the middle of the dial pad or calculator, 5 is the very dead center, the bullseye. And that's boron, and that's man. That's man. So we know that this right here, God was the word, and God said, let there be light. He said it with a word. Said it with words. And that's a representation of the planet Saturn. It can be Saturn or the sun. They can be interchangeable. So the blue can actually be yellow, because there's always the opposite end of the spectrum. Like if you look at a rainbow outside, it's not a match of the chakras, because rainbows have red at the top.
At the top,
And the chakras have the red at the root, at the bottom. But then you would just invert a human being and you'd relate to being in the upside down world. So that's how you would do that. I mean, when you look outside at nature, I said the trees and the leaves, they turn red, orange, and yellow. That's lower chakra. They don't turn blue and purple. Some of them turn purple. I've seen a couple of them turn. But if you look at the sky, if you look at a sunset, what color does the sun turn as it goes down, what it appears to be going down? Now, I'm not going to get into the flat earth, and I don't care about that crap, but what it appears to look like as it goes down below the horizon, it gets red and orange, right? Lower chakras are what it appears. So we now we can see nature, and we can then correlate that to the chakras, and then we can correlate that to the houses of astrology. And then we can really get a good indication of it's as above and so below. And that sun is our boss. It's our boss. The sun is our boss, which is why many of the ancients worship the sun. Helios, Sol Invictus, you know, it's the boss. I love the sun. I was born on a Sunday. I don't know, what day were you? Do you know what day you were born on?
I was born on a Saturday.
Saturday. So you kind of like a Saturn boy, right? So there's synchronizations for you with Saturn for you, and then you'd want to find out, okay, where's my Saturn placed in my chart? What house is my Saturn in, right? Because you're born on a Saturday. It may not be very deep for you. It may not have a lot of bearing, but it has some bearing, and it's part of the machinations of what makes up Alberta, right? Of what your birth is and all that kind of stuff. But the sun is the boss. When that thing comes up, it's an expander, and it makes everything warm, and it makes things grow. The moon doesn't do that. The moon could be full every single night. It's not going to make any plant grow. That's not its job. Some people think the moon is the reflection of the earth. I got people that think that the moon is the reflection of the earth. That may be possible. There may not even be such a thing as a moon. We may be seeing a reflection off the dome. Some people think that the moon is a reflection of the earth off the dome, right? Now, I don't really get into that kind of stuff. It's possible, but I believe the sun and the moon are the ark of the covenant. And that's why it seems to move in an ark-like fashion, the sun and moon. And that's the ark of the covenant. And we are a micro of the sun as the macro. The sun is our boss. And if you study and you start to synchronize Lucifer and the light bringer, it's tied to Jesus. They're all in bed together, all those ideas. And when you synchronize Lucifer, and you realize the light bringer is all linked to white light and phosphorus, and that is part of the sun, and that light comes down, and that's what happens when it gets light out. People get busy and start moving around. You know, and typically at night, people they go to bed, right? That's kind of the harmony of the earth, if you will, if you want to follow those patterns. But that sun's the boss, period. So it's important to know where your sun's at, and that's why the sun really will tell you a lot about your personality. Where's your sun? You're a Gemini.
Yeah, I'm a Gemini with an Aquarius moon.
Aquarius moon, okay.
Yeah. So
what house is your sun in?
The 8th house.
8th house. Okay, so then you got to bring Scorpio into that.
My rising sign is Scorpio.
Mine is too. I got
that's awesome.
Scorpio. Yeah, but in the Vedic system, I have Libra rising. So that's why it's important to read from both. And then people will be like, well, which one's better? They're both good.
I think they're just expressed in a different way. It
They're
doesn't
all,
mean that they're.
they're all just layers. It's like an onion. We're just onions. So you gotta, it's important to read from the Vedic as well as the Western, and then just kind of cherry pick whatever pieces resonate with you. That's what I do with readings with people. I'm very good at interpreting the information and knowing, like, you have the sun in the 8th house. What degrees is the sun at?
25th.
25. Okay, so it's up there. Some people say that when you get to close to 29 degrees, the energy is losing its luster, and that it's at full capacity at 15 degrees, right? But then there are some people that believe the higher the number towards that 29, 30 degree mark is when it's at its full capacity. So it's just going to come down to an opinion, right? But nonetheless, that denotes a lot about who you are and why you're here, is all the positions of the planets and what houses they're in. That's really important. And so I would have, you must have a Virgo midheaven then, right?
So.
Huh?
Leo.
Oh, you have Leo midheaven. Okay. Cool. So clearly, when you're a Leo midheaven, and the midheaven is at the very top of your chart, for those of you that are wondering what that means, in the 10th house. The 10th house in astrology is your service to the world. It's not about you and what, it's not about your hobbies and all. It's about your service to the world, because ultimately you're owned by this reality, and you're like a cog in the wheel. So you're going to have to end up living through that 10th house. So in the 9th house, do you have any planets in the 9th house, Alberto?
Oh.
No, okay. So in the 9th house, which is ruled by Jupiter, right? That house, and that's the Hermit card, the 9th house. That means your higher mind. You're not your lower mind, which is your solar plexus. You're tapped into your crown. And that's going to be where all your ideas come down and get downloaded into your supercomputer, your brain. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take all those ideas in house number 9 and move them into house number 10. And house number 10 is where you execute on all those ideas, which is service to the world. And the 10th card in the tarot is the Wheel of Fortune, as you spin the wheel to determine your fate, which is ruled and operated by Capricorn, the sea goat. Right, so, that's why the 10 is synchronized to Satan, and 10 is linked to a lot of other things, but that's where that comes from, Saturn, and Saturn is Capricorn.
That's why they call these, I don't know if you can see it, hold on. Okay, that's the devil card. Mm-hmm. And that's the card for Capricorn. A lot of tarot card readers always link this to Capricorn. Mm-hmm. And Saturn. Mm-hmm. People think that it's evil and that, but it's not. It's just a different energy. It's the opposite of the sun. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, 15 is right inside the first couple digits of pi, right after the one. It's 3.1415, so it's right after the 14. And that's kind of where we're all kind of held down with the chains. And of course, the devil card means addictions. Whenever that card pulls up in a reading, it has multiple meanings. If you get the devil card, it can mean that you need to get rid of some kind of addictions, but it also can mean that you need to be a little bit selfish in your life. And sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we give so much of ourselves to the world and we just end up sacrificing our own good. And so sometimes when that devil card comes up, it's indicating that you need to put a little time into yourself and be a little selfish. So it's really all the interpretation and what questions and where you're at. I mean, when I do readings now, typically for people, I like to do 13 card, the Ophiuchus spread, which is basically doing all the cards in the natal chart in real time and being able to synchronize those with your natal chart. I mean, keep in mind, folks, your natal chart is your freaking eyeball. It's your eye. That's why it's round, and that's why your eye has the pupil in the dead center. If you look at your natal chart, there's going to be a little circle in the very middle. That's 13, and that's your eye. And so when you're like, well, I have two eyes. Exactly. Your natal chart is typically your left or right eye, depending on your vantage point. And then the current chart would be your other eye. And that's why people do transits. they'll overlay the current chart with their birth chart, and they'll get those are both your eyes. And the natal chart, it just means student, and that's what pupil means. A little black dot in the middle of your eye. Pupil means student. So we're all students learning, and I believe that it's whatever created this reality, the architect, it comes down here and it becomes man. It's very common sense to me now that that's what this means. You know, I mean, Alberto, if you made a video game, let's say you're a software writer. Some of you at home listening to this, if you're a software writer and you make a video game and you have the opportunity to go inside that video game and actually be there on the ground playing that game, if you had the opportunity to do that, would you take it?
I would totally do it.
Of course you would. You're already doing it now. People are playing Madden football and you're on the field playing freaking the quarterback and it looks so real. So
yeah, you can see the guys sweating and everything.
Yeah, we're so close to integrating the two to where we become that reality. That's what the as above has already integrated into becoming man. We are whatever the architect is, it's using us to play out life, and we are its wardrobe. There's almost 8 billion people in the world. That's how big its wardrobe is. And it has a code to it, which is ruled by the constellations and the stars. You know that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? That's the diamonds are the stars. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, that song by the Beatles, that is the 88 constellations over our head. And then some. You know, so you can always go to the as above and it'll tell you exactly what's going to happen in the so below. If you're willing to look at it and observe it, and then you can interpret it. And that's key, because interpretation can be watered down or it can be really close to being the absolute truth in our reality.
I think that's what's happening now in the age of Aquarius. More people are becoming aware of how things work. You know, like you were saying earlier, the church has demonized and said all this stuff is evil. You know, don't pay attention to it. Okay, but when you actually pay attention to it, you can start like the stuff you do. You can decode the reality and how things work by observing. That's I like to observe people a lot, and that's how I learn. And I ask them their sign, for instance, and then I see their behavior. And then when I look at the chart, it's so accurate. You know, I'm amazed by it. You know, I'm in love with astrology now that I've seen deep into it, and also the tarot cards. And then you start seeing that all these things are connected, one dot to the next, and so consciousness, having more consciousness, is what I believe will give people the ability to live a better life. And who knows, perhaps one day just exit this reality if you so choose to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the word exit in numerology equals 15, and that's tied to the devil card. Think about that. The word
Saturn is supposed to be is the boss, right? Saturn, Satan, the crown, is the only one with the ring. So in order to exit, you have to go through Saturn.
Yep. Well, Saturn. Okay, so when you synchronize the words time, because we're all living in okay, so this is how Saturn and Satan comes into play. Okay, we know Saturn is Capricorn, the goat, and that's where you get Baphomet and all those kinds of things. But Saturn is Satan. That's where Satan came from, which is where Santa came into play, because it's the same word. Satan in numerology is 3.1415. That's Satan is 3.1415 is Satan. Okay, so we know pi, that we all create as we continually move and create our expressions through the vibrational frequencies that we give off through our emotions. We're all little devils down here, and Satan is the number 14, and the word, that's a direct match of the word God and the word time. Now we know that Kronos in the Greek mythology was the Titan that got overthrown by Zeus the Olympian and got thrown down here in Tartarus. That is an indication of the fallen angel. That's us. We're all the Titans, all down here in hell. And the reason why it says in theology that Satan only has a short period of time, because it's a representation of time. And it's 14, Satan is 14, God is 14. So the time god down here in duality is our ego. And when you live in fear, you become very egoic, because the ego is what is afraid to die, not the solar spirit, right? It's the ego. Like, do you want to die? You know, if you knew you're going to die tomorrow, you'd instantly have fear running over you. The majority of people would anyway, right? I think all of us would. That's just our human nature. But it's the time god that only has a short period of time. And that's why it says in theology that Satan only has a short period of time. Yeah, because it's man stuck down here inside of duality. And it's the ego that's afraid to die, right? So when you synchronize all these layers, you realize that we're all just little devils down here. And you need to own your shit, right? You need, instead of trying to, that's where the word scapegoat, you know what scapegoat means? Passing the blame onto something else, scapegoat. Well, it's called a goat for a reason. It's Capricorn, the devil. It's the scapegoat is the devil. It's saying, oh, the devil made me do it. Or it's the devil's fault. Or the devil is here creating all this chaos. No, it's just the code expressing itself. That's all it is. And if you can warm up to that and realize that your code is very specifically written through, and you're a fan of astrology and numerology, that's the very best thing that anyone can do, is to study their cosmic blueprint. Because when you become aware of your instruction manual, you become a better, enlightened, more experienced person. The best analogy I use, Alberto, is if you, let's say you go out and you buy a Porsche Turbo, 911 Turbo, and you go to the Porsche dealership and you have no idea that it's a 911 Turbo. You're just like, oh, I like the look of that car. You're not educated on cars. And the person who takes you out on a test drive is new, and they don't even know it has turbo. So you don't even know the car has turbo. You're like, you know what, I'll buy the car. So you buy the car, you take delivery of the car, and then you're on a lease. So you have it for 3 years. And you drive that car for 3 years, and you drive around, and you're this old lady, right? So you never mash the accelerator. You never get up on the freeway and really hammer that car and experience what it's like to have a turbocharger on the engine. And you go turn the car in, and the guy's like, how did you like the turbo on the car? And you're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? The thing's got 500 horsepower. I never knew that. So the point is, it's the same thing with our reality. Most people don't realize they have a turbocharger on their engine. We would be the engine. And part of the game is discovering that you have one, and then figuring out how to use that. You know, when you buy a brand new car, there's a instruction manual in the glove box. It's called an owner's manual. If you buy a brand new cell phone, there's an instruction manual in the box on how to use it. If you buy a television, there's an instruction manual. What about our instruction manual? Where's our instruction manual? Well, our parents did the best that they could to give us the instructions on how to be a human being. They did the best they could, if you had good parents. But our instruction manual is the as above. It's the code. It's astrology, numerology, and all that stuff. That is the case-specific code. And when you start to go into that code and observe it, you do exactly what they did with Keanu Reeves, and they plugged in and he became a kung fu master. You download, you upload, you get all that information inside of your biofield, and you become the best version of yourself. I believe that's the name of the game. That's the version of the game that all of us need to come to grips with, is that we are very powerful individual human beings having this experience, but we were not given an instruction manual, and the instruction manual, it was suppressed by the church that told you it was demonized and it was from the devil.
Man, I grew up in a church in Christian.
True, because we are the devil. All of us, we're our own little devil. Right? But when you can own your space, and when you read your cards, you know, like if you're a 2 diamonds card and you read that and be like, wow, that card totally represents who I am. Well, then own that space. If I go back and say, hey, if you're a 2 of diamonds, I'm like, tell me about yourself. What is a 2 of diamonds? You know what usually I get from people? Well, I'm a good person, and I like animals, and I like chocolate cake, and I like steamed vegetables. That's not who you are, dude. That's what you like. That's what you've created on top of who you are. No, what you really are is this superhero. And I had just done a live broadcast just the other day, and I had called out and said to people that I'm looking for superheroes right now. Like literally, like I'm not talking about like you can jump off a building and fly. I don't think anybody's at that level right now, but I think it's coming. I really, really do. Because there are people that keep coming to me right now that have these, they can't explain it. Like people that can say, I can change the weather, I can make this happen. That's not uncommon for me to hear these days. That means you're a super powerful individual. But a lot of people are afraid of that, and they don't know how to use that power. So, you know, you look at the movies, you have the X-Men, right? That whole movie was based on going to a school and learning how to use your power, because you're gifted, right? And being able to harness that energy. Well, you got to know your basics first. Even if you have special powers, you got to know where your planets are and what your cards are and what your life path is and what your personality type is. And all these layers, the more you know about yourself, the more uploads, the better you're going to become that Kung Fu master like Neo did, and they put it inside of his brain. And that's what we must do during this age that's coming upon us.
Let me ask you this: what was the card for the 16th day, 1/6?
January 16th is
June, actually June.
Oh, June 16th is the Ace Diamonds card number 27.
The Ace Diamond, okay.
Ace Diamonds. Diamonds mean in the card suits. The cards came first, and then the tarot came second. The tarot took the cards and they spun them off and changed the card suits. So the diamonds become the pentacles, and always people that read tarot cards are going to say, well, pentacles means money, it means earth, which it does in the tarot. But in the card suits, the diamond suit is it represents water. Okay, so when you're a diamond suit, you probably, I would say you're probably empathic, and you're all about the water, and water is what our bodies are made up of. So it can mean the human form, definitely. And the 27th card is linked to the dragonfly card in the medicine deck, and that's what we create through this reality. We create the dragon wave or the sine wave. So when you synchronize that, so the Ace Diamonds, that card as well is linked to the Great Pyramid of Khufu in Egypt. Because Khufu, I think Khufu is 27, and that's the 27th card. And what is the ace? It's a pyramid. What's the letter A is a pyramid, is it not? Yeah. And it's linked to Khufu. How about that, right? So how's that, these small little subtleties, how's that possible? Because it's part of the code that was written before it was ever created. So the pyramids got created because it was written in the code. You're here, Alberto, because you were written into the code. All these characters, all these avatars, were all written into the code. Like whatever the architect, I'm going to write Logan into the code, and he's going to have this, and he's going to have that, and he's going to have dark hair, and he's going to, and then I'm going to write Alberto, and I'm going to, you're going to here and there, and you're going to be born into this. Now, it could be that we wrote our own code. Some people believe that. I have a friend of mine who reads Akashic Records, and her and I differ a little bit, but she thinks and believes that we wrote our own code, and then we're playing it out. Now, I mean, that coincides with what I'm saying is that the architect that created this reality, it's all of us. It's all of us, right? That's why many people now in the occult will tell you, yeah, we're God. Right, because we're the code. So the code, and I mean, it's just, there's so many things coming out now that are supporting this, that we live in a simulation that's real. And why do we have to go to sleep? Think about that. If you really observe sleep, being awake or being asleep, they both start with the letter A, which is a pyramid, asleep and awake. And when we're in the asleep mode, we're not in control of anything at that point. We give up control. So it's a very important thing to look at. When you're asleep, you give up control. When you're awake, it appears that you have control. Two different realities. So when I just did a decode on the movie Groundhog Day. I don't know if you watched that one yet, but have you ever seen that movie Groundhog Day?
I don't believe so.
Okay, you should watch the movie. It's with Bill Murray. It's about reliving a day over and over and over and over and over again till you get it right, basically.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Because see, everything is a cycle. If you really see it, the day is a cycle.
That's right.
The year is a cycle. Our lives is a cycle.
That's right.
You know, the beginning Aries, the springtime is the golden age of our lives. Then we're going to the silver summer, the fall. You know, the day, the sun going to the horizon and falling.
Yep.
You know, it's the same thing fractalized in cycles.
That's right. Let me give you a great example. Okay, this is a really good, well, it's a good one, but it's not a good one because these are my sneakers right here, okay? And they're pretty beat up because I do a lot of outside walking here in Mexico, and the streets are all cobblestone, so these are getting really jacked up. I got to get a brand new pair, actually, right? But about 7 months ago, these were brand freaking new. No scuffs, no dirt, no lines in it, nothing. They were brand new. No smell to them. You know, they were brand new, okay? So imagine they were white. Maybe you've owned a pair of white sneakers. Maybe some of you that are listening, you owned a pair or you own a pair of white shoes or sneakers. And if you wear those shoes every single day, what happens to a white pair of shoes that you wear all the time? They get dirty. So you may take a rag and like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, clean it off a little bit. You may take the laces out and throw them in the washing machine, and then they look brand new again. But eventually, those sneakers will become used up. The soles will get holes in them. You can't, it's like, I gotta throw them away. Or you give them away, you hand them down to charity. This is exactly how our world works. This is the dark age. I'm in the dark age with my shoes right now. I got to get rid of these things. I got to get new ones. And I get a brand new pair. What happens when you buy a new car and you drive it and you put miles on it? It gets worn down. Eventually it goes to a used car. It may exchange ownership a few times, and then it eventually, where does it end up in? The freaking junkyard, typically. Then what happens? Time to buy a new car. Our world works the same exact way. It's cyclical. This game, it changes. It starts off like a brand new shoe, never worn, golden age.
Baby.
And then when you use it and use it and use it and use it and use it, it gets used up. And it becomes the way our world is right now, which is pretty freaking dismal. You know, we've taken a lot of the oil out of the earth, which is the earth's blood. We've pillaged the earth. We've chopped down its rainforests. I mean, human beings are the virus, but that's what we're designed for. We're designed to use the resources up as the divine comes down here, the architect, and becomes man. And it's just a big fat game is all it is. And the game changes, you know? I mean, when you play a video game and you beat the game, what happens? You go to a different game, right? Or I remember playing video games, it's like game over, I'm gonna play again. And you play for hours and you're like trying to go to different levels. That's how this world works, right?
It's exactly the same, yeah.
It's exactly the same, but people they can't comprehend that because you're in the now moment and you're not looking at the micro, the compute. We are literally transistors in this game. We're part of a computer. Like the Earth is the motherboard. Just like you have motherboards in your computer, which has a processor, your processor is your heart or your brain. The central processing unit in the computer, we have one of those. It's all it is, and it's all about frequency, you know, electricity. That's where you get the Elohim and the L, which is the I am. You know, so you can start to have fun with this code. And again, the most important thing to do is figure out who the hell you are, why you're here. What are you here for? You know, you're not here to work behind a desk and sell insurance. You know, I mean, that's not your main purpose, right?
Exactly.
You're not here to sell cars. You're not here to wash dishes. You're not here to cook food. Those are things that you do that you may enjoy. Most people I know, they hate what they do. I mean, I love the meme that says instead of committing suicide, people go to work, you know? And that's so true. I mean, that's why I encourage people to know what your code. Look, it took me a long time to figure out why I'm here. A very long time. But that was my code. Like, I wasn't just handed at the age of 20 or 16, you know, and I got my code at a later, what appears to be a later time in life. But now I'm in my wheelhouse. Now I have this channel that I've built, and I'm, you know, closing in on like 10,000 subscribers. It's not even a lot, right? But I've done it all organically. I've done it all by myself. And people are catching on, and I don't care. I'm not trying to look at like what number, like 100,000, 200,000. If it gets that far, great. I just trust the code now, because I know it's all about the code. So if my code is going to take me to where I'm going to get on the Ellen DeGeneres show for showing my code, well, then I get on the Ellen DeGeneres show. If I get on the Jimmy Kimmel show, I get on the Jimmy Kimmel. I don't care. I'm just, you know, using examples, kind of silly ones, right? But the point is knowing your freaking code. That's the most important thing you can do. That's your instruction manual, ladies and gentlemen. That's your instruction.
You know what I noticed too? When you do what you love or what's easy for you to do, you enjoy, you have more pleasure. You know, you really enjoy what you're doing, and that is, you know, people who have the courage to do what they love, they start experiencing a better life, you know, and actually find their purpose. And I went through the same thing. I'm actually going through it now. You know, like I've changed, and I went from being with the wrong crowd to start actually asking questions and saying, who am I? Why am I here? What is all of this? You know, and then I found astrology. I found great people and knowledge, and that completely changed my perspective on things. And you know, and finding, like you said, decode yourself, and then find your power, your special abilities. You know, I'm still learning about myself every day. I try my best. I read my chart 100 times, and every time I do, I find something new.
Yep.
You know?
That's the way to do it. I mean, you know, you're going to end up, you know, I like coaching couples, because I mean, I have a system that I've built. It's called life coding and love coding and health coding, because I've been a nutritionist a long time. And partnerships are great, because if you can decode your partner, and then you have your partner decode who you are, you're going to find things in your partner that person doesn't see in themselves. And then you swap notes. And that's where the real power comes in, because you're like, man, you really think I behave that way? Yeah, you most certainly do. But they don't see it that way, because there's blind spots that we all have. So it's great to do with love relationships and partnerships and business partnerships, knowing who your boss is. Knowing what your boss's birthday, what kind of card they have. It can work in a way to where not only would you understand that person better, but you may be able to buy them a gift based upon their card and what they like, and they may like it and receive it well better than it would when you didn't know that person and you're just guessing, right? So it's kind of a cheat sheet as well, is knowing someone else's code. And everyone out there that has a partnership, you should know what your other half is, their code. And when you can finally accept their code, there's no like forcing them to act or behave the way you want their code to act or behave, because they're just trying to be them. You know, like I feel that in relationships, the best way to win that game of relationships, you do you and let me do me. I think the very reason, one of the major reasons why relationships fail is because people try to force their agenda upon you. And like, I don't like the way you do that. Well, too bad, it's my code. You know, too bad. If you don't like it, then just deal with it. That's why in the very beginning, the honeymoon stage, you're putting out your best behavior. You're, you know, taking 3 hours to get ready to go on a date. You know, you're doing all those silly things that you wouldn't do 2 years later. Why do we do it? We get comfortable, we conform. So that honeymoon stage, it doesn't last. So studying someone's code is extremely important, because you'll start to see in them the very reason why they behave certain ways. Now, I mean, sure, there's going to be things about your partner that are rooted in their childhood. You know, maybe they're living in fear based upon being bullied when they were a kid. Those obviously are not in the astrology or numerology chart per se. You may be able to see them in there of why they were, oh yeah, I can see why that happened. But those are rooted in our childhood. And if you study psychology, which I have, psychologists will tell you that you're basically the root of ages 2 to 14. That is really a big makeup of who you are. Your childhood, how you grew up, your friends, your family, your mentors, your teachers in school, the incidences that happened when you grew up between the ages of 2 and 14. Those really never leave you. You know, those are part of your code as well. So if we can just accept our code and then accept our partner's code, our lives become so much easier. But that's just not the way it works. People are ego driven because we're all little devils, and they're not accepting of their partners. And I speak from experience. I've had my fair share of failed relationships, and I look back and you know, I've always been the person like, you do you and let me do me. But I didn't really know what that meant, and now I know what that means. But you know, everybody that you meet in your life, you're supposed to meet them. It's all part of your code. It's all part of the code.
Yeah, there's no coincidences.
Yeah, so there are no accidents and mistakes. All that stuff, you can leave all that crap behind. All those fancy words that we use to make ourselves, because life really is about looking good. That's all it is. No one wants to look bad. No one wants to take the blame, because then you look bad and you don't look good. Everybody wants to look good. And I gave this example. This is a perfect example. Just a couple weeks ago, I had to go to the dentist. What do you do right before you walk out that door to go to the dentist? You're freaking brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth. Why do we do that? Because you don't want to go sit in a chair and open up your mouth and you got a bunch of crap in your teeth. And then you're going to be like, what is the dentist going to think? I don't have good oral hygiene and stuff. You wouldn't do that unless you go to the dentist, right? You're not doing that behavior. So clearly you can see that life's about looking good. And if it wasn't, you wouldn't be doing that before you go to the dentist. Okay, that's a perfect example. So if we just can observe life just as it's funny and it's humorous and life is ridiculous, actually. It's a big joke. And just have fun with it and understand your code. And when you wake up and realize that you're completely dialed into the code and you're fixed into the code and you're written into the game of life, discovering who you are and why you're here is the most important thing you could do, period.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. When I discovered, the first time that I read my own chart, I couldn't believe that it's not 100% accurate, of course, because everyone's different. Not all the Geminis, there's no two Geminis alike. But when I read it, I couldn't believe how accurate it was. And that's how I started getting more into it. And I started finding out, like you said, the blind spots. Oh, how come I didn't realize this before? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yes, I'm like this. I'm like that. I can do this. I like doing this. Like, I like speaking, you know, I love speaking, you know. And so I decided to go that way, and everything has changed for me. So I do encourage everyone out there, whoever's watching, to always be you. Always be you and do your thing. You know, it's scary if you're not used to it. Like, the way I was raised, there was a lot of fear. You know, I was raised in the church, and the way of thinking, you know, all that mentality kind of blocks you, and it doesn't let you move forward. But once you break through that, you can experience a better life, guaranteed. And so I give thanks that I have met people like yourself, like Santos, and all these people, because we think alike and we can see these, we can decode the reality and help people understand it. So you see, I know I can speak and I can help people this way. Some other people might do it, I don't know, through a different energy. But the point is that you always be you and do your best.
That's it.
There, you know?
That's it, brother. That's it. Knowing is where it's at.
So let me ask you, Logan, before we continue, before I forget, I wanted to ask you about Jacob's ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have a decode. What would you like to know about it? Anything in particular, or just I'm going to kind of ramble on what I've discovered?
What do you think about climbing, like mainly P. Hall says about the planets, you know, climbing the planets out of here? Like the planets is the doorway in and out of this reality.
Yeah. Well, I think the planets are the chakras of the divine, the architects. The chakras are the planets. So we have the chakras inside of us, and that's the as so below, and the planets that are outside of us are the architects' chakras, and that's the as above. And if it's written where you're gonna, there's no proof that you can even get out of this game. And that's not being pessimistic. That's, there was a show that came out on Netflix called Dark, and that show clearly said, and again, that's just an author's rendition, doesn't mean it's true. You got to make the truth your own. But that show clearly stated that you just change avatars, and then you would get into synchronizing the Vedic system, which is all about reincarnation, right? But Jacob's ladder, to me, and I'm coming out with a decode on that, is the double helix, our DNA. And when you look at the double helix, it makes the figure 8. And there are 2 figure 8s in our reality. There's one that goes horizontally, and then there's one that goes vertically. And if you put those 2 figure 8s together, they form the 4-leaf clover, and that's why the four-leaf clover is lucky, because the two 8s make up that 4-leaf clover. And the past, present, and future are inside this figure 8 right here, which is our 2 eyes. You have the figure 8 right here in our eyeballs. You can make it right there. And that is what we see, because we're absorbing this information. So we are creating the past, present, and future through that horizontal infinity symbol. But then you have the one that's going vertically, and that's the hourglass as the sands of time run down. And I believe that the Jacob's ladder is that part of that hourglass. And we know, like, if you ever use an egg timer or a sands timer, the sands drain all the way down, and then you have to flip it back over, and then it starts to, readjust itself, and the sands come back down. So I believe that's lined up with Jacob's ladder, that story. And that is linked to, I have it linked to Joseph, Mary, and the Christ, that story, right? And it doesn't matter if they were real people or just an analogy, it's written into this code. All of that's written into the code. So Jacob's ladder, yes, is just a representation of our DNA, which is the tree of life and tree of knowledge. That's why the double helix has 2 sides to it. It's the snake, the serpent, the kundalini. Kundalini, actually, the word kundalini in numerology equals the number 28, and that in the string of pi is tied to the number 33. So it just means starting off at the root and going up the ladder through the DNA. And that is what I believe to be the Jacob's ladder, and climbing that and maybe getting out of here, if that's even possible. I don't know. That's an opinion that can never be proven, to get out of this game. Not possible. No, I don't have the knowledge for it, unless no one's been able to leave and come back and prove it. That's why I base myself on my research. I get a lot of people that they love saying their opinions. Like I'm from Pleiades. I'm a Palladian. I'm an Indigo child, or I'm from Orion's belt, or I'm okay. Well, what do you have to support that? Do you have some kind of artifact that you've come with? Are you traveling back and forth to that area? And no, you're not. You're basing, everybody that's saying they're from a certain area, and I'm not here to belittle that, but they're basing off of something they read in a book or something they downloaded. And I primarily would say the majority of you that are claiming you're from a different solar system, you're reading it in a book and some other author wrote, and you resonated with that information. And maybe that's true, and I'm not here to take that away, right? I'm not here to take that away, but there's no way to prove that. I'm about what I can prove. That's my whole MO. So I'm more of the doubting Thomas kind of guy, and that's the only way you can read an astrology chart, is looking. You can't read someone's astrology chart, and to me anyway, unless you know exactly what time they were born. Because if you just plug in 12 a.m. or 12 p.m., it's going to be different than if they were born at 4:10 in the afternoon, 16:10 hours. I mean, it's just not going to be the same. So you can't read somebody's chart unless you have their birth time to get an accurate rendition, because we know how much those planets move around. You can definitely decode somebody based off of their birthday and their birth cycles and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's not, opinions are easy. Those are so easy to say, and a lot of people say them. But I challenge people, because opinions they're loosely watered down pieces of information that we spew out. And unless you have something to back it up, I don't really take them seriously. You know, I really, really don't, based upon my research. Anyway, so.
Do you think the figure 8, the up, and I mean the one vertically and the horizontal one, is time and space?
Well, it's all time. It's all that. It's all going to be linked to that. We live in the sea of space, but we live in. From my research, Alberto, we live inside the cube. We live inside the. What's my name? We live inside the cube. This is a great representation of it. This is the dial pad on your phone. This is your calculator. This is the numbers 0 through 9, which is the makeup of all numbers. You can go to compound numbers, 10, 12, 21, but they eventually give all their energy to a single digit. This is the 0 through 9. This right here is the RH blood, our RH blood, rhodium, the element rhodium. This is the number 102 right here, staring you in the face. Now, some of you are like, what does that mean? I mean, it's very, very detailed, but it's very simple. But in the Rosicrucian, in that secret society, they talk about the honeycomb and the honeybees. And this is the hive right here. This is a representation of the hive. This is the middle of this is kind of the middle of your chest, the heart, the hive. And the mind, or the third eye, feeds that, because it's all about, when you synchronize the chakras, this is the number 6, the third eye, and then the heart is the number 4. So when we take 6 and 4 and we bring it together, what number do you get? 64. How many squares are on a chessboard? 64. How many codons in our DNA, possible ones? 64. 64 numbers in the I Ching. Now, if you take that 64 and you flip it in the mirror, you're going to get the number 46. 46 is linked to our dorsal and ventral roots in our brain. It's linked to Jesus and Lucifer. Jesus and Lucifer equal 46. The word Homo sapien equals 46. The word tree of life in the biblical sense, that equals originally in the Hebrew language, that's 46. The 46 to me is where we get stuck in a time loop. It's very extensive, but I believe that we're all stuck in this time loop. And I honestly, I mean, I got a decode coming out called Prison Planet, and a lot of people are waiting for that one. Just so much information. And as it stands right now, I don't see a way to get out of this game. I just don't. Now there could be, you know, if you're from another, there really is a Palladian star system, and you know, you think you're from there, maybe you are, maybe that's how you're going to exit. I don't know. But see, the game's designed to where you're not going to know until you leave, until death starts to encroach upon your life. That's when you'll know, is when individual journeys end with death. That's when you're going to know if whether or not you're going to incarnate or get the heck out of here and exit the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible also that you forget on purpose when you come here, and then you have to do the work. The actual work is, like you said, it's not having a job, it's working on oneself and becoming better, have integrity, live the best life you can possibly live, be good, and then eventually, you know, if that's how it is, you get out.
That's right.
It's just like a video game. If you don't beat the level, you can't go to the next level.
That's right.
You have to do it again until you eventually pass the level. You go to the next one, and then you end it.
Exactly. That's if that scenario weighs out. You know, like I said, I'm neutral to everything. I'm pretty set on the game being completely fixed and rigged. Just like, you know, like this Zoom software that we're using is completely fixed. I mean, we're operating and using it because someone coded it a very specific way, right? So we know that's how that works. Well, this game, I mean, sharks eat fish, praying mantises eat other insects, lions eat gazelles. I mean, that's the way the code works, right? So, but how do we get out of this game? It's going to come down to an opinion, and that's going to have nothing based upon anything substantial to support it. So we just got to enjoy the game. If we just kind of, you know, just like the flat earth and the globe and the concave, I don't get involved in those conversations right now. As of right now, I don't, because there's a lot of division in there, and they cause a lot of disharmony and low vibrational frequencies and arguments and all that stuff. I'm not interested in that, because there's really no way to prove. You can't prove it. Because there's going to be people that are going to go against you, and they're going to show you things that support what they're saying, right? So there's no way to prove it. And to me, if it's about ascending and going up, that means you need to strip away everything that you have, and that includes beliefs, right? So nirvana means to be the lightest, and to be the lightest means you need to strip away all your stories that you've created in your life. You need to strip away all the ego and not be nailed down to the ground. You need to get rid of, that's why a lot of monks, they don't have any physical possessions, because those are nailing you to the ground. You need to get rid of your liabilities. Personally, I've become a minimalist at this stage in the game for myself. Now, will I stay here forever? I don't know. But right now, it's serving its purpose. I can pick up and go wherever I want at any time. Now, a lot of people can't do that because they have a house, a mortgage, a car, a job, kids, a wife. I don't have any of that stuff. So I can just literally go and travel the world if I want. Obviously, there's handicaps now, but I can pick up and go wherever I want. That has a lot of perks to it. So I'm not going down to, but I've chosen that life for myself right now. It's part of my code, right? I've been in relationships. You go out there and you buy the expensive car. Is it a liability or is it an asset? It's both, right? But if you have an expensive car, like a Lamborghini, you have to worry about parking it somewhere where no one's going to dent it or scratch it. You got to put on a hefty amount of insurance. You got to put something on it so it doesn't get stolen. You got to worry about this. You got to keep it clean. You got to keep it sparkling. You got to keep the value up. To me, it becomes more of a liability, right? And there's nothing wrong with those things. I've had plenty of money in my life. I've been through those stages. There's nothing wrong with that part of your code because everything is just expressing itself. But I think when you get to the stage of wanting and desiring the occult knowledge, you realize that you need to strip everything away and that the physical things in life they're more liabilities than anything else. And when you live simply, like right now I can get up and like the part of the reason why I have my Decode Your Reality channel is because I have a lot of space to do that. If I was in a relationship with somebody right now, what would happen? That person would demand my attention, right? Because that's what relationships do. That means my work on Decoding Reality would get set. You wouldn't see as many videos going up, right? Yeah. And I feel like I'm right now at this current moment, and again, that's subject to change, but my focal point is giving this information out to the world and not asking anything in return. I don't even monetize my YouTube channel because I can't stand the damn commercials. They annoy the hell out of me. So I don't monetize my channel. I make my earnings through donations and readings, and that keeps me going to pump out videos, and because people are seeking this knowledge, right? But that's probably going to change at some point, you know. At some point it may change, but again, I follow the patterns of my code, of what I feel, what I download. I look for symbols and signs. I look for people giving me things. I look at everything. I look at license plates. Everything that's songs that pop into your head, that just randomly pop into your head. Those are signs for you to see what's going on. That may tell you to go a certain way in life that you were looking for.
Yeah. Now that you said that, I'm always seeing numbers, constantly seeing numbers, patterns. Everywhere, constantly, like 20, 30 times a day. Yep. Constantly. So I've been getting into numerology and trying to decode exactly what it means, but there's no coincidence. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. It's challenging because I get a lot of people asking me, well, I'm seeing all the, I'm seeing this number, I'm seeing that number. The best thing you can do is just keep a journal of what you're seeing, and then you look for patterns because nature is it's all based on patterns. Right? So if you're seeing a certain number over and over and over again, going on the internet and researching, you're going to see it's an angelic number or whatever. You may find some clues there, but if you're seeing it a few times, you want to keep records of those patterns and see where they're leading. And then if you have songs pop into your head, you go find out who sang the song, what year the song came out, how long the song was in its length, how many minutes and seconds it was, what recording artist sang it, who wrote it, what album is it off of. All of these can decode, and they can tell you more about that. Those, to me, those are what is telling you to look at, and that's going to pave the way to make your experience much more formidable and easier in this game of life. That's just kind of how I see it now.
That's awesome. Logan, let me ask you this. I know you do readings, right? So for anyone watching, if you're interested, he does readings. He's really good. And can you talk a little bit about that? Do you have a a website or something for people to go and ask for your readings?
Yeah, well, I have a new brand coming out. I haven't officially launched it yet, so I'm not going to mention that right now. But if anybody's interested in a reading, just send me an email, because I do everything by email, and just request one. Say, I saw you on a podcast, and I want to. My email is decodeyourreality@gmail.com. Decodeyourreality@gmail.com, and just send me a request, and then I can send you over the information to get you set up for a reading. And like I said, my average reading is about 3 to 4 hours. So there's a lot of information. We record the entire session so you can reference it in the future. And there's going to be homework for you to do on decoding yourself in the future. And it's really, there's no limit on how much you can decode once you are willing to accept your code. And then I can show you how to use my system called life coding, which is where it gets really fun. And it's, really showing you how to get 100% accuracy on who you are and why you're here.
That's awesome. So if you're interested, please do an email Logan so he can help you decode your reality better, understand yourself better. And I promise you, because it's happening to me, and it's been happening for a while now, that the more you know about yourself, the less stress you're gonna have, the more clarity in life, and life decisions are gonna be better.
Yep.
So thank you so much.
What's your current age right now, if you don't mind sharing that?
My current what?
What's your current age right now?
Oh, I'm 36.
Okay, so you're in a 36, you're in a 9 cycle right now. 3 plus 6 is 9, so you're giving all your energy. So right now, any of you right now, all you do is you take your age and you add it up to reduce it to a single digit. So Alberto, you're in a 9 cycle. So the 9 cycle, if you relate that to pregnancy, the 9 months of birth, 9 months of pregnancy, what happens at that very end cycle of the woman gives birth, right? So the 9 means endings and completions. So for you right now, that's exactly what you should be doing between now and your birthday coming up, is finishing up and collapsing everything that's around you and figuring out exactly what it is that you need to finalize, because next year is you're moving into a 1 cycle, and that's going to be planting new seeds and lighting fires and igniting ideas. So make sure you finish up on what it is you're doing during this 9 cycle you're in right now.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Thanks a lot, Logan.
You're welcome.
My brother, I'm gonna have to go very soon, but I really, really appreciate your collaboration and all this information. And you have done a great job. I just want to put that out there. Just go visit his channel, Decode Your Reality, on YouTube, and find out there's so many videos with a lot of good information.
Yep. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Try to share as much state as I can with people. So,
you're in Mexico, right?
I'm in central Mexico right now. Yep.
How is that?
It's awesome. It's amazing. I've been here for almost 6 months. I'm going to try to extend my stay, but the weather's been stellar, and I'm a sun worshiper. And the sun, it's rained. I've been here almost 6 months, and it's rained twice.
Wow.
So I'm completely in my realm of the highest vibrational frequency. I love it here. It's amazing.
I actually go and visit too. I was thinking about that, so good to know.
Yeah, and Santos is just over in the Yucatan. I'm supposed to go visit him. He's got some great things he's working on right now. He's opening up a school, and I'm sure I'll be part of that. I love that guy. Him and I are really tight. We don't spend a lot of time together because he's over in the Yucatan, but I just, I love him like a brother, that guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. He actually did a reading for me a while back, and he was right on point, and he told me a lot of good information. Yeah. I also heard about the school, the Syncretism school. Who knows? I might end up there too.
Yep. He's got a Syncretism school coming out. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to collaborate and be part of that. We have a lot of great ideas that we want to collaborate together, but unfortunately I'm not over, it's from where I'm at over where he's at is like traveling halfway across the US. I mean, it's a pretty big territory to cover, so it's not that easy to just jump in a car and drive over there, which I wish I could. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you were talking about video games, and I'm actually creating one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's something simple. It's on my phone. There's an app called Game Creator. Okay. The good thing about that is that you don't have to code but every other element is there for you. All you need is the creativity and
Right.
just create anything that you want. You know, it's
Got
taking
it.
some time, but it's a lot of fun.
That's cool, man. You learn, coding is amazing to learn because that's our reality is coded. So you get, when you have the knowledge that you have now and you start coding video games or scripts or software, you can then start to see the macro to the micro, the as above and so below. You can start to see that, which is awesome because you just start to pick up on things. Why do you start to see certain numbers? Why do we start seeing, like if you watch a show or a movie or a series, you start to see certain numbers, and then you realize why those numbers are there. And there's so many of them, and they just come at you, they're flooding your mind. And I know that some of these directors and producers, they consciously put them in there, but there are things that are in the background that are part of where they're shooting at, they're not part of the set, they're part of the movie itself or show itself, the way they shot it at, and there's graffiti on the wall or there's signs, and you start to see the code and you're like, man, you can tell that something created it, and it's the as above that's running everything. Yeah. It's really cool.
Brother, I'm gonna stop this real quick.
Thanks. I'm just going to say thanks for having me. If you need to get a reading, decodeyourreality@gmail.com. My name is Logan. Alberto, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, and look forward to doing it again.
For sure. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.